Kirstin Pfeiffer.
And she is the co-creator of A Black Hole, which is a human trafficking documentary. And you based this off of a book, correct?
That's correct, yeah.
Yes.
It's called A Shield Against the Monster, which is kind of like a guide to how to protect communities from human trafficking. So that was kind of the genesis of it. I'm sure Lauren told you guys a little bit about the backstory of it, but I had heard about human trafficking through an event at SAG-AFTRA. The actress Marisol Nichols was there speaking about her work going undercover and going on these stings to get people that were trafficking in California. And that just like shook me because I always thought of trafficking being like the movie Taken, in abroad situations, being kidnapped. And in reality, it's more likely that it happens from someone that you know, grooming you, and it's happening in all 50 states in the United States. So that kind of started this journey of like coincidences that I actually don't think were coincidences, of like me meeting, I was in Guadalajara and I met girls at an orphanage that were, I was like attached at the hip all day to them, and we had this bond and I didn't know why, and I found out at the end of the day that they were survivors of trafficking. And it was just one thing after another where I felt like, okay, this is not a coincidence, and I have to use like what's in my wheelhouse to like do something about this. And the thing I realized is the only thing that separated me from those girls is I was born into a family that protected me, and they were born into a family that exploited them. And so like if I have that privilege, what am I going to do with that privilege to make an impact? And so that kind of started this journey of really being like, what do I want to do? And I'm a filmmaker, actress, writer, producer, and so I had been working on another short film at the time, and I said, you know what, the next project I want to do, I want it to be about human trafficking. And then Lauren, who I've known since I was 11 years old in an acting class in Philadelphia, we bonded over our Razor flip phones, if you remember those.
The pink one.
We had the pink one too, so we like bonded the second we realized we had matching flip phones. And then she reached out to me. This was years later, obviously, and she was like, we should produce something together. And I was like, actually, I really want to do something about human trafficking. And lo and behold, her mom had been involved with a organization in Philadelphia called Dawn's Place. And so she introduced us to the head of the board there, and these two amazing women, Carol and Anne Marie, who are in the film and they'll be on our panel tonight. And they're the ones that co-wrote that book, A Shield Against the Monster. And so they have just been the most amazing collaborators and just so generous as a resource and sharing their stories with us. And so that was kind of the launching pad to this short. And we're working on a scripted series about it too. I have a podcast as well where I interview a lot of survivors and activists. And so kind of collecting all those stories and like an ensemble story to show how this is happening on like a broad scale.
Yeah. Do you remember at what point in the book it clicked that you were like, I have to make something off of this?
It was honestly just like seeing the heart that Carol and Anne Marie have, and how they just, I think honestly the book is amazing, but I think meeting with them and just hearing their story. Anne Marie is the survivor, and Carol is an activist and author and writer, and so they co-wrote this together. And just hearing how resilient Anne Marie is, and also how generous and gracious she is to give back, and the work that she does now to help other people that are in that situation, that are enslaved in trafficking, was so inspiring. And so we really wanted to honor her and her story and her resilience through this, as well as kind of bring light to the fact that this is something that's been happening for hundreds of years. So in the film, we have a bit where we flash back to the Paris Opera and kind of show the parallels of how it's been happening for so long.
That is so inspiring. And what do you hope for people to gain from this documentary?
I think that, obviously human trafficking is not a light subject at all. And I think I even myself sometimes feel like I don't want to go to that place. I don't want to engage in it. It's just so heavy. But I want people to not be overwhelmed by it, but realize we all have a part to play. There's so many factors that play into this, whether it be legislative loopholes, whether it be like advocacy work to prevent it, or rescue work to go and like save these people if you're in the government or whatever it is. And so I think just seeing, like for me, it was like using my filmmaking and my podcast and all of those things that I had in my wheelhouse to make a change with awareness.
Yeah.
And so I hope that people can just be aware that it is happening all around us, know the signs. There's so many great organizations like A21. They have an awareness campaign of like the signs to look for. And so just educating yourself so you can know what to look for and those red flags. And then just know that like A21 also says for the one. So there's 40.3 million victims worldwide, but we do it for the one. If you can help one person, that's one whole life.
Exactly.
And so just knowing the smallest impact is actually like saving a whole
Yeah.
person's life.
And that brings me to my next question, which is I think what stops people so much from helping is that they think, oh, I'm just one person, I won't make a difference.